Hello, today we will be going over the round 2 game of the USA Championship between Hans, Niemann, and Jeffrey. During this game, Hans had the great chance of winning this game, but the game petered out to a draw. So let's go over this game to see what happened. All right, we start off with E4, E4, E6 of French. D4, D5, knight C3, knight F6, classical system. E5, knight F. F4, protecting the center. Knight F3, defending. Knight C6, bishop E3. C takes, knight takes, queen of B6. Here, Hans could have played queen of D2. Queen of D2. I think that's not in the book, but there's a queen of D2 line. I think by transposition of moves. But queen of B6. If queen of D2, he could have played queen of D2. Then rook B1, queen A3, then bishop B5, knight takes, bishop takes. White is basically fully developed in this line, whereas black isn't. So therefore, white has an advantage. The queen has to worry about getting harassed on A3, rook B3. So white has the advantage, although black captured this B pawn. Black is a pawn up. So let's go back. Queen to B6, A3, bishop to C5, knight C, B5, knight takes, bishop takes. So Hans correctly, he took with the bishop. Knight takes would allow queen takes B2, but then the knight would go back to B5. If knight takes, queen takes B2, knight back to B5, threatening C7 here with a fork. But the bishop is hanging. So if bishop takes E3, rook B1, queen A2, well, we would get a perpetual here. Because white is down a piece here in this position. Although knight C7, the knight would end up knight here check, king would just move. If knight takes, then queen takes pawn. And black would have a decisive advantage here in this position. So we don't want to go. So they did not choose that line. Knight takes, he played bishop takes D4. So then we have castle. Bishop takes C5, knight takes C5. If queen takes C5, then maybe the queen to D2 stopping queen E3 check, and then knight to D4, and we're even. But knight takes C5. Actually, queen takes C5 would have been better, but by only a small amount. Queen to D4, F6, bishop E2, F takes, bishop D7, attacking the knight, knight D6. Here in this position, white has an advantage because, well, the knight is planted on D6, which is a pretty good square. White has the possibility of playing B4 in the future here also. So black ends up playing bishop A4, B3, protecting C2, bishop back, then B4. B4 is the correct move here. B4, knight E4. What if knight D7? Well, they could exchange it. He would lose the B7 pawn. queen takes, or not necessarily. Queen takes, knight takes. Computer likes rook here, so knight there right away. That's still, knight takes b7 still holds an advantage, but knight to d7 is not recommended here. Knight e4, discovered attack on the queen, on which makes a discovered attack on the queen on d4. So knight e4, queen takes, pawn takes, knight takes, d takes, and what we have here, we've saddled black with double b pawns, and they're weak. Those two pawns are weak. We have a weak e4 pawn and a weak e6 pawn. So black is definitely up the advantage here. Bishop c4 attacking e6. Bishop f7 is recommended. But Jeffrey did not play bishop f7. He just moved the king, giving up the e6 pawn. Bishop a4 attacking. And this is a cool move, Hans castles. He never moved the kings or the rook. So Hans castles, which is brilliant. Then e3. Rook f1 opposing the other rook, which is the best move here. Hans sometimes plays brilliantly like a machine, and then sometimes he doesn't. I don't. So this is where Hans makes a mistake also, bishop g4. The correct move was, computer says to simply exchange down, then bishop to d5, and he should win. He has a pass e pawn. This pawn, the e3 pawn, will fall eventually. But this pawn on e5 is, he can walk this pawn. That's very strong. So then rook f2. I was looking at this variation after bishop d5. What happens if rook f2, bishop e4 protecting c2, then if he plays e2, rook there, and if rook f1, king there, king to d2. But Hans plays bishop to g4, throwing away a lot of the advantage here in this position. Jeffrey plays rook to e8, rook fe8, attacking e5, rook d4. Rook fe1 was preferred here because rook fe1, rook takes, then rook d3 with a slight advantage. Rook there, then bishop d7. Bishop takes, rook takes. Now I was looking at what if e2? Well, white would just pick up the b7 pawn. If rook d8, rook d8 has no future, then just rook takes b6 with double connected pass pawns on the queen side. So rook f8, rook d4, rook takes e5, and now we're even. So Hans' trouble started after bishop g4 when he should have just exchanged down, bishop g4 rather, and just play, rook takes f8 right here. That's a huge advantage according to the computer. Rook takes f8, that's it. Like we were just going over. Bishop d2, bishop g7, g3, bishop c6, king to b5, king to b2, b5, and now we're just even. But later on, it seemed to me that the only player that could win here would be black. Rook d8, rook d3, opposing the rook on d8. Rook goes back. He could repeat moves. h5, h5 with h4 coming to disrupt the kingside pawns. We would get double pawns here, but a rook on h8 would mop that up. Plus, there's no future on the queen side on the king side for white. Rook c3, rook h8. Hans stops that h4. So maybe black should have played h5. I'm sorry, h4 sooner, or if he. Let's see if Rook d3. No, computer doesn't prefer that. Hans stops that. The game is almost completely even here. Rook d4, bishop e4. Here, I like Black's position. I mean, like I figure he's the only one that could win here at this point. Hans had a great advantage earlier in the game, and it just evaporated after bishop g4. Hans would have been in first place, tied for first. Rook f1, bishop e4. He would have been in sole first, I believe. Bishop c6, and rook f1, and they agreed to a draw here. So round three is about to start right now. It's 2 p.m. Eastern, 2:11 Eastern. So we're going to check out round three and see what Hans does. But he blew this game. This was an absolute victory. He had it right in his pocket, and he let it go. Thanks for watching.